Joining us from Capitol Hill is Representative Blake Moore, Republican of Utah. He is the Republican Conference Vice Chair. He also serves on the Ways and Means and Budget Committees. Representative Moore, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Representative Moore, when it comes to the aftermath of the strikes on Iran, there are efforts in the House to limit the president's powers on that. What do you think of that effort?
Well, there's always been a minority member of bipartisan group of folks that put up the authorized use of military force and trying to limit that power. There's a majority of us that think that the president, regardless of party, has some limited capacity with a certain timeline to be able to authorize military force. It's an ongoing debate. It's not just new right now. It's been pretty much every year or every Congress that I've been back here. So this is the same old types of debate. And I think the part to remember, and I think that's important, and I made a point about this in my statement, is look at the individuals that are making the argument. If they have argued against President Obama for the raid on Abbottabad, or President Biden for the attacks to get to take out the replacement for Al-Qaeda, Zawahiri, if a Democrat has been critical of those actions by the president, and they're critical of President Trump's actions with Soleimani and this most recent, then there's some credibility. But if they're only targeting the opposite party, there's no credibility in their arguments. But I think there's a small group of bipartisan members that don't want the president to have any ability to do anything. And then the majority of us say that there's some limited capacity. It's a very difficult aspect to get through, but it's a simple argument on whether you want the president to have any or some or absolutely none. And I've been supportive of all of those things that I've mentioned. If we would have briefed Congress on the raid in Abbottabad, I highly suspect Osama bin Laden would have gotten word of this, that would have been leaked, and he could have escaped. And that's the reality.
One Republican joining in that effort, Thomas Massie of Kentucky. To what degree does that surprise you?
Not at all. Thomas Massie is a very straightforward individual that disagrees when a Republican or a Democrat takes any type of authorized use without, this type of congressional approval. That's the type of people I'm trying to say that I respect. I respect their opinion. I disagree with their assessment, but I respect their opinion and their willingness to call out both sides and make it a principled argument and not just a partisan argument, which I think you see a lot of way too much.
Going forward, if strikes were to continue, would you want to hear from the president before, or would you be comfortable with an action first and then information from the White House on what happened?
If the president is doing what's legally allowed for him to do under the current policy, I can support that. I don't know what those looks like. I don't know what the intelligence is on that. So we're speaking to some point in a hypothetical. If I ultimately disagree with the president's assessment to make that effort, then maybe that's it. But his ability to do it, I agree. I'm also a supporter of modernizing our language on this. Warfare changes over 25 years. There's some language to be cleaned up. So it's one of those things that I think we should be debating and getting that constantly reformed, so we're in a good spot. But I do believe that the president, regardless of party, has some use of military force that the commander-in-chief can authorize.
When it comes to those changes and the cleaning up process, what would you like to see?
So I haven't seen any specifics of what the House Armed Foreign Affairs Committee has put forward on what they're doing, so I don't want to get out ahead of it. But this is from 2001, and we're in a different stage here. While we're having the strike this last weekend was Middle East related, we've got Indo-PACOM that's going to be a vastly different type of potential conflict. Hopefully we can avoid and deter. I think this last weekend helps us deter that. But there's a changing environment, and we need to just make sure that we're providing that timelines, when they have to notify Congress. Those kind of things need to constantly be discussed.
Representative Blake Moore is with us until 9 o'clock, and if you want to ask him questions, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, 202-748-8000 for Democrats and Independents, 202-748-8002. You can text at 202-748-8003. Representative Moore, the House is expected to get a briefing this week What are you hoping to learn from it? And what do you make of the information, at least from that leak of the Defense Intelligence Agency report, about what exactly happened in Iran?
Yeah, we were planning a brief on Tuesday as soon as we got back into session, but we had planned that before the strikes had even happened. So now that the strikes have happened, and we're going to come in with a brief later in the week. It's constantly changing. I do think there will be lots of questions about, okay, now post strike, the assessment. Please, provide us the information that we can make a judgment on the level of severity that we've damaged. I don't think there's any question that we have damaged Iran's nuclear capacity and their ability to move forward in the imminent phase that it was to be able to enrich to the point where they needed to make a weapon. I think there'll be a lot of questions. I would love to get a better understanding of how close we do think, once they can enrich, how close are they to building a delivery mechanism, right? That's always, as I understood it, that was always a longer process. That wasn't necessarily months or days away, but we want to be able to judge all those types of things and the aftermath. And there'll be more intelligence that comes out about everything. I mean, a massive strike like that. I'm so proud of our military. I represent an Air Force base. This is something that, still pulls at our heartstrings about the individuals that we get to interact with that are serving our country, and the successful operation that they did. We will identify as time moves past that the level of severity, but there's no question that it was a significantly successful attack, and I'm so thrilled that we were able to do it without a boot on the ground and without any harm or detection for our armed services.
The president gauges it as a total obliteration. The leak from the report maybe suggests it's less than that. Where do you fall as far as what do you trust as far as the damage done?
Well, I will trust when I get a full assessment and an intelligence readout of not just what's being reported. So I look forward to a chance to hear from folks tomorrow. I can also request another intelligence briefing in the days to come as well, and we'll have to take a look at the assessment. I do assess, based on what I've seen from Israeli intelligence as well, significantly thwarted their ability to develop a nuclear weapon. And every single president for the last 25 years has promised to the American people and to the world that we will not let Iran become a nuclear weapon, a nuclear state that has the capacity to wreak havoc across the Middle East.
It was Axios that reported yesterday that over concerns of that leak that occurred, that the White House may produce limited information, or at least pull back a little bit on information that it shares with Congress. What do you think of that report, and how much do you agree with that idea?
I think we'll learn a lot more tomorrow in our briefing and the days and weeks to come. I'm not concerned about an ounce of what Mr. John Radcliffe. I think he's an incredibly a talented individual that's been in this space a long time, and I look forward to potentially hearing from him soon.
To another front, you serve on the Ways and Means Committee, the budget committees. There's the debate on what the final result, once the Senate's done with One Big Beautiful Bill Act. To what degree are you concerned about these potential changes from the Senate?
We've been working very closely and kind of in communication with the Senate as they go through their process. We're kind of taking a step back and letting them go through all of the work that we got to do over a course of a year. They've had a few weeks, maybe even a month and a half or so. I've been very impressed at their ability to move through it quickly, identify areas that they have to land on. They're a different body than we are. We have different considerations. We both have, they even have a larger majority if you think about percentage-wise than we do. So things are tight in the House, and we got that thing right to a sweet spot. And the Senate has done more on what we didn't know they were going to do, and they've left a lot of other things alone exactly as we planned it. So we'll see what the final piece looks like. Really excited though. I think we're having good momentum right now, and I'm bullish that we can get this thing done in a relatively short time frame, hopefully in time for the end of next week for the president to sign on July 4th. That's a deadline we would love to meet. Mm-hmm. It's a self-imposed deadline. It doesn't have to happen by then, but it would be great if we could finalize it.
But when you have Chip Roy making comments to the extent that he's going to vote against it if he doesn't see certain things, some others, you talked about the tightness, what you have in the House. Are you concerned that the Senate's changes could ultimately derail the effort to pass it?
So those type of comments from individual members are what's helpful to figure out where we need to get to make this a successful legislative effort, and it is no different than what we've seen since the start of this Congress. And we have gotten through a government shutdown. We've thwarted that without a day of government shutdown. We have put together 2 budget bills nobody thought we could pass. Several other things that we've constantly been told we're not going to get done, and because one person said this or one person said, like, that's all part of the plan and all part of the process, and we're working through it all. It's not always a perfect system, but we to date, as a Republican trifecta, White House, House, and Senate, we've been able to get all of the necessary things done and relatively good timeline. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's he says, hey, I'm watching out here from the cheap seats. I have a good sense of what you all are doing. He says, I'm so impressed that you've been able to get all of these things done in the timeline. Nobody thought we could get the House version done by Memorial Day, and we got that out the door. The Senate has been working very hard, and I still think that we have an opportunity to get it done by next week.